a first day of Test cricket for the summer here in Australia in 2024. Pretty magnificent 17 wickets falling on the opening day of play. Great stuff if you're a neutral observer, if you've got no particular attachment. I suppose especially to the Australian team, if you're hoping that India can come in and pull an upset or at least make it competitive, then it stumps you. Would have been pretty happy, pretty entertained, so full, so filled. To quote what will be the best line in cinema from the Thunderbolts trailer that seems to be playing anytime I'm in a cinema. Certainly didn't look like that early. I think anyone who has watched enough Test cricket in Australia and has seen travelling nations come over and surrender a horrendous opening session or opening two sessions or opening day, and you can sort of feel like the whole tour is almost toast at that point. When the side loses 5 for 50 on day one or is bowled out, for 200 after opting to bat first, or, the other worst case scenario is, you win the toss and put Australia in, they rack up 400 on day one, and that just sets the tone for everything else. So there was a moment yesterday when India's innings ended and we were waiting in that limbo state of how will it look once Australia bats on it. And then they did bat on it, and you knew that maybe we were up for something decent this summer. Fingers crossed, obviously. Cricket can change quickly, as we saw yesterday. But it definitely lifted my spirits, that final session in which Australia lost 7 wickets and were in all sorts of bother, headed for stumps. I still have this thing at the back of my head that says, geez, Australia always bat deep. If they can get back to even, then you'd almost feel a little bit like India have wasted a chance to go in with a first innings lead. But I suppose when you get bowled out for 150, if you can get Australia out even anywhere near even your score, you'd feel pretty happy with that. But yeah, just a great way to start the Test summer. And it made me think how often I used to say, and I've heard people say, oh, the Test, it's going to be over in 3 days or 3.5 days. And another Test, capitulates inside 3.5 days. And it made me think about how entertaining yesterday was. And online, I've switched over to Blue Sky, the app, instead of Twitter. And just the buzz that was about the place, about the cricket and people talking about the cricket. And it made me sort of question, well, why have I always said that? Why have I always said, another rubbish Test that ends in 3 days or 3.5 days? Surely there's nothing wrong with a Test ending inside the 5 days. Why have we got this obsession all the time? Why did we particularly have the obsession previously that the only good Test was one that didn't find its conclusion until the 5th day? It's a bit like speed limits or something. Everyone feels like, on the highway, unless you're driving 110, your driving's rubbish. Well, that's the limit. And there's a lot of lovely drives to be had and scenery to be enjoyed if you're at 100 or 105. Not a perfect analogy, but you think about the 5 days is the limit of a Test match. And I understand we don't want timeless tests. We don't want to go back to that. But, 5 days, what's wrong with having the rules being, the regulations of the game being, 5 days is the maximum. At the end of 5 days, if a result hasn't been achieved, then we have a draw. And that's our result. And if we've just, now entered an era where we've encouraged more contest between bat and ball, where we have Tests ending in 3 or 3.5 days, who cares? One of the big things, about watching Test cricket was sometimes you'd have a match and a day would get rained out, or the track would just be dead, and you're just like, oh, maybe it started to break up on the final day, and you think, oh, geez, if we only had another day to get a result. Well, this is perfect then. If results are entertaining, if what we're after is, more tests ending in a win or a loss and less tests ending in a draw, then encouraging more of a contest between bat and ball, it's naturally going to produce tests that do end inside the 5 days. And I don't think that has to be a problem. I don't know why we always saw it as a problem. Maybe, I suppose maybe it's a lopsided test. That makes sense. That if it ends inside 3.5 days and someone gets destroyed by an innings and 200 runs, then I get that. But, you could equally say that of, a test that goes 5 days because someone racked up 650 and then we had a bit of rain on day 3 or whatever, and it petered out into a draw, or I don't know. I just think that maybe sometimes we see things as an issue that they're not really an issue. In fact, it's actually a positive. Like yesterday was fantastic. I think probably you'd like to have seen a couple of the players go on and get that half century. Having done the work to get to a 37 like Rishabh Pant, or was it 43 that their other batsman who top scored was out for? I think 43 off the top of my head. I don't know if you can hear, but I'm just standing outside. So I don't have a computer. I don't have notes. So, that might have been, maybe that is more on average if we were losing 17 wickets, but also having, teams not being bowled out for 150, but maybe 200. A few more runs would have been nice. But particularly the Australian innings, I thought they were really. I thought that they really let themselves down. They probably didn't, find enough ways to score. And I suppose you've got to credit India's bowling for that. But to their credit, India found ways to score runs. There were plenty of moments in their innings that you could enjoy some really nice sort of stroke play. So just really a fascinating opening day is what I would say. A fascinating opening day. And if it does end inside, 3.5, 4 days, who cares? I think it'll be a pretty great result. It's going to be fascinating to see how many Australia can put on in their second dig. And equally fascinating to see how the second set of innings goes for India. Will it be shown that runs were actually a little easier to make if you applied yourself and were a bit more disciplined or something? Or is it just a case of the pitch was really lively and now it flattens out? Will it break up? I mean, this is why we love Test cricket, isn't it? That it does unfold over the course of multiple days, and the conditions change, and people's attitudes and temperaments and a tactical approach that can change as well. But India were. I mean, obviously Australia bowled well, but I really enjoyed watching India bowl yesterday. Like seeing that, the cartel of Indian fast bowlers was so refreshing and excellent to see Australia really challenged on day one of a summer. And I suppose having started watching Test cricket 20 years ago, 20-ish, and probably a lot of you listening have watched it a lot longer. How many times have we seen that opening day where the visiting side just, absolutely melts and the tour is over before it even began because Australia just, step on their throats in the first day of play, and India responded. So, hopefully we get more of that. Hopefully it unfolds in the same way for the rest of the test match and the rest of the series. Imagine that if we get a 5-test thriller across the rest of the summer. That would just be a lovely dose of Test cricket medicine. All right, that's all from me. I just wanted to do a little quick audio check-in and offer my thoughts on a first day. Enjoy the cricket. Stay cool. It's hot out there.